That's exciting.
Everyone is so nervous.
A reward. This is such a nervous experience.
I wasn't nervous until you guys started saying that.
It's really the beginning. Like, once we get in a flow, it's like a presentation. Like, the beginning is, like, scary, and then...
Yeah.
Right.
Hello, everyone. This is Shamar Coxum here, your host of a new podcast coming to YouTube called A Perspective, where people have conversations that one might not consider relatable, but I believe after listening to these conversations, you will not only find it relatable, but also intriguing, because we feel that there is a lack of communication in this world for whatever reason it may be: technology, politics, drama, COVID, being separated from each other. We believe that it is important to keep communication alive in a time where it seems like it is fading every day. This first episode is on education, and we have a few professionals in that field here to discuss what's been going on due to COVID, since COVID, and what's going to happen now that we are in COVID. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Amy. I am teaching English as a new language. This is my 11th year teaching.
I'm Sarah. I teach English as a new language as well, and I've taught 4 years in public school and 6 years abroad.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Juliet Coxum. I've been an educator now for, goodness, I would say about 22 years or so at higher education, and then now at K-12.
I'm Raquel, and I teach ENL. I've been working in education for about 11 years.
I'm Amy. I currently teach kindergarten, and I've been teaching for 7 years.
So, is the school year over for everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Well, summer school starts tomorrow for me.
Oh.
And I just started teaching adults online last week, so kind of.
I have even more questions. Okay, so the transition at the beginning, how was it, I guess, just moving to almost all digital in the beginning?
Well, in the beginning for us, they just said, we're going to be working from home for 2 weeks. So, like, take what you're going to need for that time. So I think that was hard, because then they were like, you can't go back to the school forever, basically, after that. So people weren't really prepared for that change. But as far as working online, I feel really comfortable doing digital stuff. So that part wasn't a hard transition for me.
I don't think that technology was the hard part, but it was like, we've been teaching this way for so long, and then how do I do what I know is good, and then transitioning it to an online platform? You just can't be the same, so you have to think about things in a new way. And it felt very abrupt, because there was no time to prep. It's like, okay, go online.
For us, I felt like it was really confusing because we didn't really have any information. Like, my district was like, okay, we're going to get things up and running like in 2 weeks for new instruction. So we had 2 weeks kind of like limbo time where we weren't sure what we were even supposed to be doing. And for me, it was especially challenging because I have a co-teacher, and she's a lot older, and she was really struggling with transitioning into online. So I felt like I was doing like 19 other jobs.
Yeah, definitely that.
Yes.
Because I felt like it wasn't so much, like you were saying, how to do it digitally. On my end, it was, and I heard this at one of the workshops that I attended, I became like tech director. Like, all of a sudden I was the tech person for all the ENL students that I work with, because they didn't know how to access things, or their parents didn't know how to access things, or how to send an email, or how to open their basic things, digital literacy, that they just didn't have any capacity with. So I sort of became this tech guide in addition to everything else, and that was difficult to make it so that they still had equal access to the education that was being offered when they had all these other barriers that now got compounded with the situation.
Yeah, and I feel like as one of the youngest teachers in my school, everyone was like, oh, Amy knows how to do this. She's young and good with technology.
Right.
So I kind of feel like I had to do like everything for everyone. But that's also like me as a person. Like,
Yeah.
I'll help you. And then I'm
happened to
up
me
until
too.
midnight, like making someone else's Google Classroom.
Right.
I think from an administrative, standpoint, and we'll certainly hear it from your perspective as well. We actually, it was kind of the wait, right? Because then coronavirus was kind of in the air for a little bit, and waiting for the governor really to give, the orders in terms of what that in itself is going to look like. Are we going to close? Are we not going to close? And I mean, if you really think about it, when they say unprecedented, it's unprecedented because in no way, shape, or form we're talking about we're shutting everything down, right? But what does that mean, we're shutting everything down? Like you said, you take, things for 2 weeks. Well, in the background, it could be an early spring break, but it really isn't because technically we still have to run classes. So from the administrative perspective and in terms of my personality, it's kind of like, okay, I know now we have a plane and we're going to build it, or as we go along, because that's exactly what needed to happen. But the unknown most certainly was a major thing.
Sure.
In Poughkeepsie, the biggest struggle that we had, not just the communication piece of it, but we have a lot of equity issues, right? And so now, all right, let's see. How are we going to do this? Because if we're going to the online platform, about 90% of our families really doesn't even have that, right? So then how are we going to prepare them for that? So initially we started with packets of information. And so even though the students were out, we were going to get packets to them. We got packets they said for about 4 weeks. So we wanted to do the extra packets. Okay, how are they going to get the packets? Okay, they still have to come in and get the packets. How are we going to ensure that everybody is going to get the package? And again, the disparities, right?
Transportation issues.
Absolutely. But it's also the disparities because you have parents who are really, right, there for their kids and are really on. And then you have parents who
can't do it.
Exactly. Can't do it or don't want to do it. Okay, Sarah. So then there's a couple of different pieces. But at the same time, we have to think about, our students, right? They're babies. It's at an elementary school. So, you really have to take care of them. We're talking about, we provide meals also for our kids, right? Because we're 90-something% free and reduced lunches. So we're talking about all of the different dynamics, not just the education in terms of the book stuff, but we're also talking about all of their literal basic needs. What's that in itself going to look like? So it definitely put a major spin on it. Our teachers, of course, just like you guys have shared, totally unprepared for this because some of our teachers, they started the Google thing and they were online, right? However, but majority of them most certainly didn't. And so it's like, okay, so what are we doing? How are we getting this? So we pulled BOCES in, of course, to help us to get all of that pieces together. We did our training, but even with a solid week of training, it still wasn't what we wanted it to be. So, I mean, most certainly it was a different way of doing things, and it's I guess a learning experience for all of us. Moving back, well, that's kind of the other piece, because now we're in the waiting game to see how are we now going to prepare. Are we going back full-fledged? Okay. We don't have the infrastructure for that. Technically we don't, especially if we're going back with masks and have to social distance. We don't even have it. We didn't even have the infrastructure in the first place before we left. So now to do that, that's going to be something. Now my understanding is that now everyone has to have their own computer. So now we're talking about technology and all of those kind of things. We have to get that. So I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know where to start because we haven't gotten any directions yet from the state. And so with that, even though we're having 3 plans, one to go back full force, one to go back, part-time here and there, and then the other is to stay online until January, it's still, a whole lot to take care of. A whole lot to take care of. Busing is a major issue, right? So how are we going to really do that? We're a walking district, but our students with disabilities, they all get busing. So how is that going to happen? So a lot of different pieces, especially administrative wise, right, needs to happen. So, but whatever it is that we have to do,
We'll make it happen.
We're gonna make it happen. Exactly.
Figure it out.
Exactly. So, long answer for us.
Always. It's beautiful. I love
Yeah.
it.
I wanted to jump on what you said about the equity thing. I think for the first 2 weeks, I think we all talked about this to each other before, was that most of that first 2 weeks was just finding out, like, who has Wi-Fi, who has access to different things, whose computers are working or not. My district, we, at least for the middle school, we had mostly one-to-one devices already. And so that was okay, but then if they don't have Wi-Fi, they can't use the device.
Correct.
So we spent a lot of time just working on figuring that stuff out, like who has what access, who needs certain things, and then just trying to advocate for our students. I know there was one kid that I had who didn't have Wi-Fi, and he wasn't able to get it because all the places that were offering the free service, you had to like give them all of your information so that they could start charging you after a certain amount of time. And if you don't have a social security number or credit card, then you can't have it.
Or like I had one who, it was a landlady situation, or landlord had to do the installation, and it was like you couldn't make them do it, like, and they didn't have control over that, the family, so.
Yeah.
And for the free hotspots, you had to have some sort of internet close enough to you for it to pick it up. And if you didn't have that, then you had to pay $1,000 to get that. A person that's not paying for internet does not have $1,000. So then the district picked that up, but then there's a lag of time.
Yeah, they're behind.
I think one of my students, it was like a month and a half before she had internet. So she's trying to do things on her mom's phone, which her mom also needs to use, and her brother also needs to use.
Right.
And it's a phone, it's not so easy to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that, like, the students who were only using the phone couldn't access everything.
Correct.
And they weren't able to do everything.
Even like on a tablet, some of the things that our district like purchased just for the lockdown didn't work on a tablet. In our district, everyone in grades 3 to 12 went home with a device on that last day of school. But I teach kindergarten, so not all of my kids had a device.
Makes sense.
So K1, 2, and then they started like trickling it down, and they opened it to second graders. So I think K1 were the only grades that didn't have any sort of district issued device. So that was challenging.
That was definitely challenging. I mean, even for us, to be honest with you, we're closing. It was on Thursday, the last day of school, and I did get an email from a parent that we didn't get any information about devices and so forth. Can I get a device? Well, you're returning them now. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we have to really go through it. I think, especially for my building, we had literally maybe about, I would say 75% of our students were able to get access, have the technology and all of those kind of things. But the other, 25 or so percent, just for whatever reason, wasn't able to get connected. And so now, in terms of all of the lag, and really trying to prepare them to get back up to speed for next year, that's going to be our major challenge, with that. So I think statewide, we're looking at asking the state to really postpone all that or do a waiver, especially for all of the exams that's coming up. We're not going to be doing that. We need that bridge, if you will. And so next year literally needs to be a bridge year in order, for us to get our students where it needs to be. So we'll see how, how and where that goes, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And a lot of parents are saying that they're not bringing their kids back.
There's that too.
Yeah.
There's that too.
Homeschooling.
Yeah, I had one of my students who was already out for like a week before they closed the schools because her mom was too afraid to send her in, which is reasonable.
Yeah. So,
But then we have like, if they don't send their kids in, like we had parents, because for kindergarten it was really, I was teaching the parents how to teach their kids, and it was difficult because the parents aren't teachers, like they don't understand. Like I'd say make sight word flashcards, and they didn't know what like a sight word flashcard was. So I had a lot of parents, well, not a lot, a couple of parents like just give up and say like, this isn't working for me, like my son is miserable, we can't do this.
And it's a different relationship too,
Correct.
for them to be parent and teacher all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I'm fearful of like what it's going to look like next year if we do need to rely on the parents again, but the parents are going back to work. And
Or they've had it with the
Yeah.
guidance or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's parents who can at least even use the technology. Like some of the parents, you don't think about it, but if you don't have to use email for work, like
They don't
you
know
don't
how
know
to
how to
use
use
email.
email,
That's true.
or
That
if
is
you
true.
don't, and most of our parents don't have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
Or one thing, I know technology has to be huge on the priority. It was so, like, there was like limited support in my district with it. And it was, there was an email set up. So you would just email them with whatever problem. Well, if you don't know how to use email, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of the families I work with, they're not going to send a random send a message to a random email address. They need to know who they're writing to.
Exactly.
They need that relationship.
You're under security
So
too.
if they're gonna write it in they're ashamed of their Spanish sometimes. They're ashamed of their English. Sometimes they don't know who tech support. That's it.
What
Tech
does that
support
mean?
at
Like,
yeah. They're like, who is that person? They don't feel comfortable doing that. So that's not working. So we need like something that does work.
So that was like another job that like teachers
Yes.
had to pick up. Like, I'll email tech support and let me get back to you. Like the amount of
And
times
then
I
do
wrote
the
that to parents.
Back and forth
Yeah.
for a while, and well, did they try this? I don't know.
Yep.
And then that's when the parents actually talk to you.
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
A lot of times they are uncomfortable even telling us. Like even though we're, I feel like we're all really good about reaching out to our families and working with them, and that's part of being an ENL teacher. But there are still things that they don't really want to talk to us about. Like one of my families got COVID, and I was talking to Mom every day, and she never said anything to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, she and Dad got it, and then they found out later when they did a home visit because the kids would not do any of their work, no matter how much we tried.
Oh, okay.
And then
You
that's
said they
how
did
we
a
found
home
out.
visit during that time?
Yeah.
You guys did, okay.
Yeah, the assistant principal would go out with either the social worker or the SRO
Oh, okay.
sometimes just to make sure everybody's okay. And there were a lot of cases in the area, so they wanted to check on everybody, which I think was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't do any home visits. I think that would be really good in general to do home visits, but especially
Yeah.
Also-
Reliability especially for
Yes.
for our teachers.
that's how
was like
it is
no.
at our district. They always say liability.
Especially during this time. So that's
Sure.
why I was surprised that you said that they were home visit because
Yeah.
we weren't even allowed to go into the buildings, or teachers weren't even allowed to come
yeah.
into the buildings and to go into others' homes.
Yeah,
to
it
kind
was
of do
just
those kind of
the
things.
assistant
And,
principal. That's why.
And
Yeah.
it was like outdoors, maybe just at the
Yeah, I
door.
think they
Yeah,
just
to
went
check
to the
in.
house, and I don't think they went in.
I mean, I think
don't
it's
know.
very good. Now,
Yeah.
I'm saying, that was something that we, the staff had a discussion about because, of course, with everyone now being at home, right? There's a whole lot of different things, the social, emotional,
Sure.
and the family dynamics that you have to think about. We called, for example, we had a situation where we had to, we weren't able to get in touch with a family, and so we called CPS for CPS to actually do the home visit, and
Yeah.
they're saying that they're not doing that during that time.
Yeah.
So then a
Yeah.
whole lot of different dynamics come into play. And so of course you had to be creative in terms of where you meet, how you meet, and those kind of things, if they're even,
Yeah.
going to meet. But, I thought that was kind of, an interesting
Yeah,
point because
surprising.
a lot of our students, we are concerned about abuse. And so that's where we're like, CPS, please,
Yeah.
just to check in.
Yeah,
At
I
one
think
point.
they just wanted to make sure like their parents were okay and like everyone had like food and were alive,
Right.
But yeah, I think they probably just knocked on the door to see if people were home, and
Yeah.
but it was just those guys, the administrators,
No, it makes sense. Makes sense.
We had to keep like a weekly contact log, and then any student we didn't hear from that week, we had to put their name on the spreadsheet, and then our social worker and nurses, because they're bilingual, called all the houses every week that we didn't hear from.
Yeah, we did. We did that. The admin and my secretary and social worker. So that was one of those things as well. But even with that, we still didn't have 100%.
Sure.
Attendance, regardless of no matter how many times. And there are even some parents that we know had devices because we bring devices. We had it shipped to them. and all of those kind of things. So everything was set up. But then again, you have to say, well, you do have to log in at some point.
Yeah.
Right.
And they chose not to. And what are you going to do at this point, right?
Right.
It's hard to enforce anything.
It really is.
And that's what the big question is for the fall. If we're all online, you can't have another year where kids don't do anything.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like, then
Correct.
they're just going to slip and the gap is going to widen.
And how do you hold them accountable when the equity's not there? Yeah,
Right.
maybe they
Correct.
have the device. Like ours, that was the thing. We gave you the device. It's a school device. And the mom said, yeah, she opened the computer, there was nothing in it. Like, the work just pops.
Popped out, right.
The mom didn't know how you log in and how you find the work and how.
Yeah.
So it's like,
You walk them through it.
walk them through it, but every single day, like that's, and I had like 12 kids on that I needed to call every day, that was impossible,
Yeah.
and so it's like, if we want to hold them accountable, we have to get that equity piece in there, and it's,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
think
I
about-
found that the same kids that during the school year were the ones who never did their homework. Well, now it's all homework. They're not doing any of it. you know?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
That was another thing. Like they would do it so late in the day, and I said, well, that's when they're used to doing schoolwork at home.
Yeah.
Is like 4, 5, 6
Right.
p.m. That's when they think of it.
Yeah. Or actually, in many of our cases, say for instance, if there's several students in the family, like
How-
7 or so kids, right?
How
You
can
kind
they
of
all
have
do
to plan when you do that, and as long as we get it I think we made it so that the assignments needed to be completed and turned in every other day.
Okay.
Right, so giving that leeway, and we were able to give those families additional, devices and so forth. But even with that, like I said, the
Sure.
disparities
Yeah.
and all of those really come into play. But yeah, I don't know.
I think balancing the work too, because I teach middle school, and they're older, but they're still not able to like do all of that like organization
own.
of stuff on their own, or even like get themselves on the computer, especially like the 6th graders, forget it. But like I would make everything due at the end of the week, and then even my best students would like start to slip because they would be like completing all the other stuff, and then it would get pushed to last because they're like, it's not due until later, and so trying to make sure they stay on track.
They almost need like a priority list, or like, okay, you did social studies, now you do English, and kind of like rotate just so they're getting exposed to all the subjects. I don't know.
That's true.
Yeah.
And we actually did something like that. Several of our teachers really did, like the whole schedule thing for them. But even with that, though,
Yeah.
it's just a different world altogether, and students aren't able to focus.
Yeah.
Even if you were doing the Zoom one-to-one,
Yeah.
it just was very, very
didn't-
difficult.
It takes a lot of self-discipline, which they're still too young. They haven't learned it yet.
Yeah.
And you need the parents to say, gotta
Right.
yell it,
Right.
to make it happen. I mean, we try a lot of different rewards and all of those kind of things, but even with that, but, I don't know. I guess the future looks different. I always look at it very bright. So.
So does the school year count if all of these challenges and kids
Does
aren't
it-
doing their homework and parents aren't making them do it? Does this year count?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to retain anyone this year. Everyone got moved on to first grade.
Yeah.
This is actually the
So-
first year people retain people in my district. Like,
really?
Because it was like very specific situations. Like one student just started getting special education services, only got it till the time we were out, and we're like, that was not a fair chance. And she's not ready to go to 4th grade co-teach.
Okay. that makes
So we didn't want to put her in a self-contained class when that's not appropriate. She just needed more time, possibly. We don't know yet, but like
Yeah.
it just, so this was the first time we had like a fight kind of for that, which who knows what the right thing is. This is
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually very interesting. We actually had an extensive discussions about retention this year. We didn't retain anyone. The way that we did even our grading policy, also an extensive situation, because we put our teachers in through so much in terms of training, making sure that you did this and so forth, put the policies in place, you have to do this. And at the very end, the decision was made that we're only counting their work up until March 13th. And so everything else online in terms of the Google Classroom is just extra credit. You see what I mean?
Sure.
And so,
Yeah.
so then it was kind of a big kind of push, because now then, all right, so now we're starting to fall. If we go to
You
online,
can't do that.
if we go to online, so then parents are going
the
to say then,
accountability thing.
right. Why? What's the
why?
sense of that? Because they did so much for those parents who were diligent in
Yes.
doing that, and then it didn't count anyway.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
You know, so those were some of the points we were trying to, you can't really set yourself up for failure. If we said that it was going to count, this is their responsibility. Somehow or the other, it needed to. We needed to make it matter, and it didn't. So, I don't know.
Even with writing the report card, that reminded me of this, like, there were some kids that went above and beyond, did every assignment with a lot of effort behind it, and then there's some that did nothing.
Right.
But we were supposed to write a very common report card comment.
Right.
But I'm like, that's not really fair. You need to acknowledge the ones that did put in the extra
Absolutely.
effort, and maybe say you could do a little more. That's my personal opinion.
Absolutely.
That's
But-
how we did our report cards. It was like acknowledge the ones who
Okay.
did, and
I added like one line to try to something, but like we kind of had a blanket statement with like a tiny variation. But I was like, I have to say something that I'm
Something.
impressed with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
report cards were definitely challenging.
yeah.
We had for ours the third quarter was like extra credit basically after everything that we had already graded, and then fourth quarter was pass fail, and then we just did the overall average based on up through third quarter grades for the year, and they did fail students who had been already failing before the beginning of the year. So there it is.
So it's I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's so hard.
So, working with other teachers to try to figure this out, did your perspective change on the teachers you've been working with for however long? Given everyone has to adapt, but seeing their behavior, what they were doing, did the perspective change?
Yeah.
I
you
think
thought was whatever.
because especially Ian out, and you had co-teacher too, like, so we all co-teach. We all have a lot of teachers that we work with. Like, I felt like the communication, the cooperation actually increased during this time, and I mean, we had the time to do it. Like, we had, we had
on your time.
to actually meet together and figure it out and talk together. So that made a really big difference. And I found that they had an appreciation, a newfound appreciation for the barriers that the else do have, and like, what is the work that we all have to do to get to get the students to have equal access, whether it's in the classroom or not. Like, I think it opened their eyes a little bit to what that is. And and we worked well together.
I felt like for the teachers that I already had good working relationships with, it like you said, it got a bit better, and that we were communicating more frequently, and even doing a little bit better planning together, which because during the school year, we don't always have common planning time, or teachers don't want me to come to them during their lunch or our common planning time because they want to use it for whatever else. And so that's been a big struggle all along as co-teaching. So in some ways it was better because like everybody, you can, communicating via email, so when you get it, or one teacher, we actually talked like at least once a week. We had a meeting where we like met and really went through things, which was great. But then the other teachers, it was worse because then we really never saw each other. Teachers who I felt like I already struggled with, getting them to like include me in the planning, give me a heads up, it was just worse than it had been before. So.
Mine was kind of a surprise. The person I had one of the best co-teaching relationships with, just our style didn't work for online because we did parallel teaching mostly, and then we'd like switch the groups, so less planning that we had to do, but they were getting it in a small group setting, and that didn't really work with the online. We didn't do any live teaching, so how do you do that in a Google Classroom? So I kind of just did some lessons, she did some, but there wasn't a flow like we had in the classroom. And then one class that I struggle with co-teaching, they actually included me in a lot, so it was like a surprise. But the ones I had a good relationship with, did build on that, like
Yes.
you were saying.
Yeah.
Raquel.
I really, a lot of people didn't want to do the meetings online, but I really felt like they were beneficial for my groups because, you know, especially middle school level, you know, with ENL, like they want to hear your voice and see your face, and like otherwise they're not going to do anything. But they could just not do any work and at least show up to those meetings, and then like, you know, they're safe.
Right.
You know, they're at least paying attention.
Made a connection
You
with
know.
them.
That was like my biggest struggle with like working with my kindergarten team live every day. Like I was meeting with my kids every day for like 20 minutes a day. Like I wasn't doing instruction,
Right.
but we did like fun things like get them to the computer to see you. And I was recording like screencastify lessons like every day, and they were like, I kind of just felt like I was doing so much more work than them.
True.
And it just made me feel like what are you guys doing at home? Like finding a YouTube video and posting a super teacher worksheet, and that's all that they were
I
doing.
think there was a lot of disparity
Right.
with that too.
Yeah.
Especially in like the different buildings, the different like elementary to middle school to high school.
And it was kind of like I felt weird asking people like, what do you do on a Google Meet? So I didn't really know what anyone else was doing. I was like, well, I know what I'm doing, and it's working for me and my kids, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's kind of what we had to do, and that's what our district said. They were just like, you know, you guys are the experts in your area, so do what works for you. But like you said, that means that everybody's getting something a little different.
Sure.
Which was hard for the parents too, because then they would see, well, my one kid gets this and my other kid gets that, and like, why aren't they the same? And
Yes.
so, because then the parents have to learn double whatever we're teaching them. So.
And in the beginning, they were like, we're going to do the same thing across kindergarten. And then I realized that they're not doing anything. And I'm like, I'm not doing the same. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, we originally said all the grade would kind of try to keep it the same,
Yeah.
but I was in 2 different 3rd grade classrooms, and one
not the same.
really didn't have much, and then one had like a ton. I don't know which one's the right way to go with, but it was very different. So those 3rd grade experiences were completely different, but that happens in the classroom as well.
Your thoughts on your teachers and how they
I
respond.
mean, almost kind of the same. To be honest with you, I mean, you know, you have your super teachers, if you will, you know, teachers who are really engaged, really care about the students, and, you know, they were going to do what they needed to do nonetheless, and it most certainly, you know, shines through. And then there's some who, you know, oh, this is very new, but I'm going to give it a try, and so, you know, with the training, they really engrossed themselves and did their very best, and some's like, I don't really have to do this, and so as long as I just sign on, grab something and put it on there, you know, then you can do that. I mean, we strongly encourage our teachers to really do those Zoom calls, because I thought they were very, very important. You know, at least to see the face, just to do the check-ins, you know. But, you know, interestingly enough, many teachers were extremely uncomfortable with doing the Zoom meetings. I mean, I had my staff meetings, and we were meeting at least 3-4 times a week. They were on, but for them to do a class, you know, with the students that they've had, it was darn near impossible. I mean,
people felt really
I couldn't grasp that. You know,
Yeah,
I couldn't
I
grasp
couldn't
the
either.
concept.
I couldn't either.
You know, but they didn't, because we couldn't make them do that, you know, but they literally said, because then that would be a way for me then to go into your classroom, right, during your meetings, to kind of just check in to see how things are going. But no, we don't have to do that. Union says you didn't either. You get what I'm saying? And so
It was in our distance learning plan that came out through the union and the districts that you had to do 20 minutes a week on a Zoom with your class.
But then I felt bad, like, am I going against my union for like doing more, even though I feel like this is the right thing? It was just really tough.
very, very much so. And so again, you know, as you know, your first question is, as you plan, you know, for the upcoming school year, well, what in itself, what is it going to look like? I am actually quite curious in terms of our summer school. I think that's going to kind of set the stage and the foundation, you know, by which we actually learned and, you know, revamp a lot of the things. However, we're doing our you know, it's the extended learning, extended learning for the students with disability. Well, almost 90% of my students never logged on in the first place, right? And so now we have summer school, and it's part of their IEP. So I'm curious as to see what that in itself is going to look like, because do you understand what I mean? I mean, we've put so much money into really setting that up, hiring teachers, doing all of these things to do an online version of something that they didn't even participate in. When you understand what I'm saying? I'm really very curious, about that. And I think from the district perspective, that is going to set the foundation or set the stage to say, okay, what then do we really need to do? Right.
So, it'll give some good insight.
It really will. It will. But at the same time, I just don't know. So many uncertainties.
Yeah.
I'm actually doing 2 summer programs, one for kids and one for their parents. And
I love that.
I did one class last week, and I was like, oh, this is how online teaching could work, because I actually dove into it. During the school year, it was really just morning meeting, getting questions and stuff like that. It wasn't teaching. I was like, how do you do it? So now I feel like, but I don't know if it'll translate exactly to kids, but at least it makes me feel like it's possible.
Right.
But it'll be a good learning experience. I'll feel more confident with it after this.
They want us to pilot a new program during summer school. I'm like, why are we doing this right now? I mean, it's an online platform. So we are Google district, but they want K-1-2, who didn't get Chromebooks, to pilot Seesaw, a different online platform. Which I did hear it's better, but
that's what
I don't really. I mean, I don't have a problem learning it, but do I want to? No, because I'm comfortable with Google Classroom, and I just feel bad for these parents who these are the students who didn't show up, like you said, all year, and that's why they're recommended for the summer program. So now I'm like, okay, you're here, and I'm going to teach you something else that you have to do that you might need to learn for next year, maybe.
Or maybe there'll be something new next year. Yeah.
So that's annoying.
That is annoying. I'm kind of curious as to why, though. I mean, for our district, what we did was all of our students, we actually, even from our, pre-K, we have some pre-K as well. Everyone got emails, so we were able to get them kind of going to that. So I'm interested, to hear about the Seesaw.
Seesaw? I'll let you know if I like it.
We used Seesaw in my district, and it was just, certain teachers wanted to use it, and they had been using it before.
Yeah.
And then
I heard it's easier if you've used it before, before we were home.
Yeah.
Is Seesaw the one that's kind of like a Facebook stream? Okay, that's what our district is.
But I think it's difficult to post assignments, so what I think I'm going to do is post on Google Classroom and say record your answer in Seesaw, and then check Seesaw for the work. Because Seesaw is more click here and record your voice, click here and record your face, click here and type. It's a lot. It is more, I think, user friendly for little kids,
and they can respond to each other. And
but just I just feel bad asking the parents to learn one more thing.
Right. Yes. Right. If there's no longevity.
Right. Exactly.
It's just piloting.
Right.
You don't know.
With these students who didn't do anything for the last couple of months, and parents who are stressed out already. I just didn't, I understand it, but also it's kind of why are we doing this right now?
Is it summer school for gen ed kindergartners?
Yeah. So our summer school, this is a new program because of the pandemic.
Okay.
So it's K-5, ELA, and math, remedial.
Okay.
So I'm actually teaching kids who just finished first grade going into second. So I don't even have my kids.
Right, and that's something new to figure out. How do you
get to know
them when you haven't
online?
That's another thing I'm worried about going in.
Yes.
In the fall, how am I supposed to start kindergarten
and build a rapport?
Virtual?
Right. Yeah, 6th grade is having the same question right now too.
Oh
it's
my God!
All new kids to the building, so.
I'll personally have my same kids besides the 2nd graders going to 3rd. I know some of them though, just because of summer school in the past and stuff, but.
It's not the same.
Not the whole classroom that I work in.
That's true.
So besides pilot systems and things like that, did the school year just end, and has there been any conversation about any changes going forward into the fall?
There's many conversations, if you will, but even with our conversations, and I think in May or early May, the governor, charged the superintendents to come up with a plan. They've also put in place a lot of different work groups, right? Regional wise and statewide to kind of put the plans in place. And of course, it definitely looked different from everyone. So even though we're working on a plan, right? And so that's why it needs to have it's a three-prong approach, if you will. When the governor says what he says, that changes. It may change a whole lot of things. But when I talk about the infrastructure piece of it, the busing, right? And again, even though we're a walking school district, right? And only our students with disability gets bused, that's even a problem for us. So I can only imagine schools that, you're pretty much,
Everybody.
everybody
we're a
gets
busing
busing.
We're all
We're
busing.
busing.
Exactly, right? So just that alone in itself.
Yeah.
And,
How can you socially distance them on the
Yes,
bus?
that's
correct.
You need more buses. You need more drivers.
You need more drivers, and they're normal, older, folks that are usually driving the
Yeah.
buses, if you will.
Right, right.
Exactly. And then, just the space-wise, what does recess look like? In terms of even asking our little babies, you got to wear your mask, you got to wash your hands. I mean, this is what they do
Right.
all day.
All day.
all day long. How are you going to keep, keep everyone safe? I don't know. I don't know. So I don't know. I
Right.
don't
We
know.
just don't know.
Yeah.
And I think they don't really know the direction the virus is going to go.
Correct.
Like they're seeing these spikes in the other states. Is it going to come here? Are we still going to be
Right.
maintaining it? Who knows?
Exactly.
And I know in my district they said they had team, like you were saying, there's regional and statewide, and I know in the district there's teams like a transportation team, a communications
Yes.
team, or whatever. And then like you were saying, the 3 plans that they're working on, the administrators are working to make scheduling and plan for if we go back fully, if we go back part-time, and if we go back online. So it's all 3 of those plans are ready to go, depending on what Cuomo says.
Did they invite teachers to be on those?
No.
I think ours did invite teachers.
I don't know. They might have invited them. Not on the scheduling, not on the 3 plans, but maybe on those
Committees.
committees. But I never heard how you could get on a committee, so I don't know if it was select teachers or how it went about. But
Yeah, my building send out stuff, but they're doing it building wide. So I can be on a committee, but I don't know if it's gonna make a difference.
right.
It all does make a difference, to be honest with you, because then we all are learning. I think it's going to be important that every single stakeholder is part of this plan.
Yeah.
And we most certainly need to have one of the things that we always leave out is the parents, and even having some students on
Yes.
it. Even though they're elementary, we still need to hear their
Yeah.
voices,
Yeah.
in terms of
But high school students could definitely participate.
they definitely can. But I'm telling you, even our elementary
Yeah.
schools,
Yeah.
they
They
can,
can make
because
yeah.
Some eloquent 5th graders.
Exactly, and sometimes
even
you don't even have to be
kindergartners.
eloquent. You
Their
just want to hear
points.
their voices, because everybody has.
They see it a different way.
They see it a very different way, and
Yeah.
that needs to be taken into consideration. To be honest with you, so
I tried to ask a lot of feedback about how distance learning went for them, but I think just typing it into a Google form wasn't the way to ask.
Yeah.
I think face to face in a meeting would be, you'd get more.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
I heard a lot of so boring.
Right, right.
That was what my kids said. Every time, I'm so bored. We're
Right.
what'd you do this weekend? Nothing.
Right.
A lot
middle
because
school.
my kids were so little. They're like, we miss our friends and we miss
Yeah.
school. And it's just really sad.
Yeah.
I know. Well, if middle schoolers are saying they miss school, then you know it's bad.
Yes, that's true.
And
Some
the
of them,
parents are like, they're really sad.
some of them, I've heard from parents too who this actually works for them
Yes.
because of their concern about the bullying issues
Yeah.
and all of those kind of things, and their students really excelled because they didn't have to deal with all of those. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you kind of need to get all the voices.
It has been good and
Yeah.
bad. There has
Yeah.
been good and bad
Has been good and bad.
for everyone. Teachers, parents, kids.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It was nice. One thing I liked was being on your own schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I work best in the late morning through the afternoon, sometimes at night even. But so you could choose to do that. You make the Google Meets when you want to make them, and
Right.
it works. But then sometimes I'd be like, it's 8 p.m. I should really stop. Not every night, but
Right.
there were
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, that was nice.
I did get a lot more messages late at night than
Yeah.
usual. My students actually, because so what happened was, it seemed that most middle schoolers have their own cell phone, and the best way to get a hold of them is to text them. So before I never exchanged messages or whatever with them, but I got one of their Google phone numbers, so we were doing that, and so I get like, Mrs. Piazza, like 9 o'clock.
Yep.
Like, no.
I know. Yeah, that was it. It was like I had to be up at early to work with the teachers,
Yeah.
and then do all day like normal, and then I had to be available late
For the families at
for the
night.
families at night, and it was like, oh, this is too long of days.
Yeah, it was kind of hard. Like, when are you on and when are you
Yeah.
off?
Right.
Like, I
yeah.
would make a conscious effort every day to be like, okay, I'm turning off my computer and I'm putting it away
And this is it.
and I'm off the clock. Like,
Yeah.
and it was a struggle every single day
Yeah.
for me to do that.
Yeah.
Because your work platform, I guess you would call it, like
Yeah.
was right next to you at all times.
Yeah.
Like,
And like, I know that they like need help and I want to know how it's going,
Yeah. But there has to be a time.
but yeah.
Yeah. Same here.
The time management piece definitely, come into play. And again, once you start it and you have it down packed, then it kind of rolls and you kind of have your routine. Of course, the emergencies and all those things kind of pop in here and there. But for me, I guess I'm trying not to stress a whole lot of different things, So it's like, okay, this needs to happen, Once I get that together, then it's like, okay. I mean, I hear the stress of the teachers. I most certainly do, and I acknowledge it. And many of it was based on, the way that they work, to be honest with you. Many of them were just stressed because they wanted to do so much. Well,
Yes. Yeah.
it's not really necessary, but, that's how you work. So then, you create a lot more stress. And again, just the pandemic in itself
Right.
created so much stress.
Yeah, it's
You
true.
know,
Yeah.
that's the overarching, right? Many of our families also, had the COVID or folks, passed away. One of my teachers
Or work
passed away.
was
lost jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we weren't always like
So
privy
much.
to that information as a teacher.
Right.
We didn't know what was going on in everyone's house. So
And that was part of when we were checking in about technology and internet access, we also were checking in about, do you need support with food? Do you need support with your rent? And some families would be open about it, and some,
Sure.
I'm not sure if they actually, it's, because that's hard to say to,
yeah.
an authority figure or however they view us. Then I had other students we're bored, can you send us a puzzle? And I would, because I can't say no. But it's funny, someone will be like,
Right.
we're fine, but I'm like, I don't think you are, but I
Right.
can't push this. And then others are like,
We need this. We need
can
this.
you send me some orange juice? I'm like, what?
Yeah, so when they did open the building, or like they said, you can go in for different materials and stuff, I went and I just grabbed whatever I had and I put together some different baskets to give to families, and even then only 2 families said that they wanted them, and there's another one that I was like, I know that they could use it because they have 4 kids at home right now. Even if it's just to entertain them, they're probably going crazy. So I dropped one off at their house anyway.
And books too. I kept asking, do you need a book to read? Do you need a book to read? And everyone said no, but I'm like, you just have this library, or are you not reading?
Yeah,
They're not ready.
That's what it is, not reading.
But they would write about a book. Maybe they just chose one they had read before or what. But I'm like, I don't have that many books at home. I don't think you just collect them.
But one of the issues that we had too, that, for some of our students who you knew were not doing so well throughout, all of a sudden they were doing great. And so now you wonder, so who's doing the work?
Yeah. That
Yeah.
happened. Oh, that
Yeah,
happened.
that's a big one.
Who's
That-
doing the work,
yeah.
really,
Yeah.
Come report card time, I was like, well, I don't really know what this kindergartner can and can't do independently because everything's been coming back perfect.
There you
So
Right. So that was the thing that we had to kind of, deal with. And I think that was part of the, one of the overarching, in terms of, we really can't truly count it.
Right.
Again, because we don't know who was doing the work, and it was so glaring in many cases. For our high school, we were pretty, consistent. But in terms of our elementary, then we had to make those adjustments. But
Well, there's even faculty in schools that don't know how to let the kids try.
Yeah.
You know, so how do we expect a parent that has no training in education to do it?
And when they're being told this has to get done, and they're like,
Exactly.
Right.
So parents
Do
like,
it.
we have to get this done, you know?
yeah.
Even parents who are teachers.
Right.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Because it's like, okay, I'm going
Gotta
to do
get
my
it done.
class now, but now we got to, you know,
Yeah.
get that taken care of. It's interesting. It's an interesting time that we're doing.
Yeah, I feel really fortunate that we don't have kids because
Right.
that would have been
Yes.
impossible. You know, a lot of teachers have little kids at home
Yes.
running around, even like the assistant principal, because I was on a lot of the
Or even
meetings.
high school kids that
Yeah.
they have to stay on, you know?
Yeah. That and they would just be like, "Ah," the whole time, and he'd be like, have to turn the sound off, and you see him like
Yeah.
Right.
yelling at them.
Exactly. Some of my teachers were in the cars, you know, and even with you know, again talking about the disparities, it's almost like she was in tears because she was like, you know, and I'm really good. We have like 5 devices and I still can't.
Right.
You know, it's like I gotta do this. and
Right.
I'm not
doesn't-
doing okay.
And do the laundry and get the food
Exactly.
cooked and
Yeah.
keep everybody from
Oh,
prying
my
each
God.
other's eyes out.
Yes.
And
I can only imagine.
It was
Yeah.
too much stress at once.
Yeah.
It was just overwhelming.
yeah.
Yeah, and like you said about the devices for teachers, because like some teachers, you know, didn't have a nice setup at home. Like I bought myself a nice laptop a while back because I like to do video editing and stuff. So like I had a nice laptop that I could use anywhere in the house I needed it. And then Mike had stuff from his work. But a lot of teachers were
Right.
saying like, oh, we just have one thing, like one tablet that we share.
That we exactly.
And I don't have a space
Right.
in my
No, me
house.
either.
Like
Yeah, it's not
we
set
have
up
like
that
a
way.
spare room, but that's where my husband was doing his work from home. So I like set up on the dining room table, and I have to clean it up
Take it
after
down
I'm
and-
done because that's where we eat.
Right.
Yeah.
That was another issue that they talked about in my district was not everybody had the same devices. So like when we would be trying to help the parents through
Teaching.
it, and it would like it looks this way on my device, and I use this operating system or I use this browser, but if you open it like as an app or on the you know, like everybody had a different device. So
Well, even
how
a
could
Chromebook to a laptop or
Yeah.
an Apple to a PC.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
there's
Yeah.
so many.
it factored in too to being able to help, or if you could do the activities or how you would help them. So it's like that needs to be addressed too.
So, with all that being said, what do you think is the biggest or a positive to come out from this situation?
I think, like you mentioned before, it's like, you know, we've learned a lot of different ways to, like, because it did help some students. Some students learned better this way. So we're kind of understanding a new way to work with students. So I think that's really good. And I know, like, at the end of the year, I started doing a reading group with my students online, which I had been doing in school. But they showed up, you know, and they were willing to read together on the Google Meet. And so I think that we found that certain things can continue working. And that's really important to know because, you know, we do need to start transitioning into like a future society where we don't have all this paper, we don't have all these, you know, we have to change the way we do things. And there's a lot about the school system that is bad. I mean, you know, the way it's structured is like not great. It's been like that for a million years. So
I think that it helped me get really close with the families I work with because I was their lifeline in a lot of cases, and now I just feel like we can contact, not all of them, but there's a lot that like they can contact me at any time, I can contact them, and it just seems seamless, and I feel like there's a strong relationship there. Also, teachers that were very afraid of technology were forced to do some things, so I think integrating technology into the classroom in the future will happen because there's some things that are just better on technology.
Yeah, I think that too. It was the relationship with the families, the relationships with the teachers definitely got solidified. And like I was saying earlier, it opened up, again, sort of what you're saying is that there's things we need to fix with the schools, you know, and it opened up people's eyes about that, and like I was saying about the L's, like what the barriers are and how we need to, you know, approach those or have things in place to help reduce those barriers.
For sure.
for me, my motto is that conflict always brings change, right? Needed change. And so with Corona, I think we had a pace that was just kind of robotic. It was just you go. Yeah, you reflect sometimes, or you do an assessment, but do you do really a true assessment? And this really gave us the opportunity to stop and literally assess and reflect, right? I mean, not just school-wise, but I'm talking about even in our own
lives are.
In our own lives, exactly. I mean, unfortunately for some families, there's separations and all of those kind of things, because what you've also find is that many folks can't live with their spouse, right? Unfortunately, right? So now you're quarantined for this many months, and it's like, well, maybe I need to kind of rethink that. And for others, it brought them, really, closer together. And that in itself, especially for us in education, translates, into that, because it's really our lives. We definitely had an opportunity to really truly see where the disparities are, and the students who need a heck of a lot more from us. And as a district, it would behoove us really to get on that. If you're talking about devices, you're talking about just the basic needs, making sure that those are taken care of. One of the things that I'm really happy to hear, and the superintendent just announced that, is that we're going to a community school format, when we return in the fall, however, that looks. And
what does
that's
that
something
mean?
that it means that there is going to be a link and a strong connection with the community agencies that are out there, to the point where we're getting additional social workers for the buildings. Right, we're getting the parent family coordinators are now going to be housed in every building. You know what I mean? In terms of all of their, medical needs and so forth, there's a connection. It's right there.
Yeah, that's great.
Within
That's
there.
awesome.
So whether it's like mobile, whatever it may be, but we really had to take a look at that for many, many years, and that was something that the board passed. So that's something most certainly is very, very positive, because it's not like it just started, right? We needed that. In terms of for many of our teachers, to be honest with you, I mean, many of them did step up to the plate, and really, online and, really the technology piece that was so needed, they were able to do that, however it was, I mean, I have one of my teachers who was just like, come on. It was just like an everyday thing, but it's kind of a walkthrough like you do with the parents. But I was so proud of him, but he's also one of those teachers within the classroom is like, yes, we got to walk it through. But he did it. And at the very end, he's like, I did it, So it's, those are the things that I'm looking forward to, because now that he's learned that, that's something that I don't have to say that you need to incorporate. You want to do that because now it's a new skill that, you gain. And so
things were so much easier than I thought.
Yeah.
Like even I'm like, oh, I don't want to learn how to do this. I'll just do what I always do. But I was like, oh, this is so simple.
It
like,
really
why?
is. It really is. So I mean, I don't know. We needed some sort of a pause. We honestly did, to now start it up. And and like earlier, we said, the system in terms of education and what it looks like, it really needed to be revamped. I mean, I'm not sure what it's going to honestly look like, but we really need to truly take this opportunity to really create a much better system. Look at the system that they have in other countries, what works best. We don't really have to go to school for 5 days a week from 8 in the morning until, you know what I mean? So there's so many different opportunities for us to really, grab hold and make it, wonderful. So we'll see how that goes. But I don't know. It happened, and it happened for a reason, and I'm just looking forward to what it's going to look like moving, beyond.
I want to know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to know too.
Was the governor supposed to announce something like mid-July? I heard a date, but I don't know if that's just rumor.
I'm not sure what date he is. And I think with many of the different, he does have to get the feedback from many of the different, groups that's been set forth, and then kind of make a decision on that. So I don't know, but I'm noticing with the governor too, though. I don't know. Just lately, especially with decisions are made, and yes, especially in the beginning, things were seeming to go accordingly. But now it's like, no, I don't like that, basically.
Right.
But that's what I'm noticing, just like with, everyone, the spikes is up, so nobody can do this, nobody can do that. Let's talk about it.
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see.
I think they're going back to like the spacing. I just know like some of my colleagues have like immune compromise, in their family, and they don't want to go back into work because they don't want to take any risk at all. So like that's
how
a
do they keep
consideration
working?
too.
Like
It's a consideration.
Yeah.
Can you force people to go into
Right.
an unsafe? But then how do we make it like that's another issue.
One of the things that I've heard, especially from I think it's sort of New Paltz, some of the faculty and staff have the opportunity, right, a choice of whether they want to go back online or in person.
Right.
So they get to choose.
Yeah, there was something that was talked about in my district for the parents to choose which one they wanted, and it was like, but then how do we plan for that?
right.
Like that's a whole other.
That's a whole nother dynamic.
But it's
and we
an idea.
we should know by mid-August, so at least we have
Mid-August?
a few.
I need master schedule up like from months ago. So
True. Well, on our end.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, even with that, right? The master schedule is the your lifeblood there. And I can't even figure out what my master schedule in itself is look like. I haven't look at it in many different ways, and it's just like, oh, forget about it, because it's such a tedious process in itself. Because if it's not right, I mean, again, it is the bones of the building.
Yeah.
Nothing really can go wrong.
Yeah,
so
it's to the minute.
to the minute, exactly. So that's where my little stress, if you will, not really so much stress, but major concern is like, I need to know, because I need this master
To make
schedule
the
going.
schedule,
Whether it's half day, every other day, if it's some online, whatever that looks like, because the master schedule has to reflect that.
And you can't put the brain power into making 3 versions. Like, that's insane.
No, that's
And you can't do it overnight either.
Right.
It takes time to.
Exactly, and I lost my assistant principal, so now it's like, okay, so I really got to get going on this,
Do you usually do that, like, as a committee at all at school?
I usually do, but for the most part, I usually, I have a transformation team made up of, teachers from every grade level, but I usually have to have the skeleton. I mean, I'm not just going to say, okay, let's start.
Right.
You have to have a skeleton and then say, okay, take a look at this, could be juggle, whatever it may be. But I can't even present they haven't even been appointed yet.
Right.
So it's like,
Well, all those end of the year wrap-up things were done, like,
differently.
differently. That's a
very
good
different. And some of them are not even done yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you can't do it.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
my transformation team has not been appointed by the board, so, and normally, I got to send out the application to
It's
teachers.
like a paid.
It's a paid, exactly. So it's like, okay. All right. I'm not worried.
I know,
That's
right?
going to be my last question is, do you feel ready in any way, shape, or form of the fall?
No.
No.
Right.
The only thing I'm ready to do is be prepared to
do whatever.
Think quickly.
To do whatever.
Yeah.
think
Pretty much.
quickly, do whatever, be flexible. Like,
That's it.
that's
And then-
the only,
I've talked with people like, I'm afraid if we have to go in because I don't want to get sick. And I'm like, well, it's not our choice.
Right.
Like, I mean, unless you have an immune issue, then I'm like, you just have to trust in the decision. Like, it is what it is.
Right.
And we'll be safe. But I just can't. It's just funny because, like, stores have this very limited capacity. And no one's been inside anywhere forever. And then we're going to all go into this mass group in school. It just
Correct.
doesn't,
Right.
Correct.
and people are going to be, like, weirded out and, like, I don't know.
And-
No, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
And then depending on how the schools are, it affects how the parent, if they have
work.
to work
Correct.
and not, and we
Yes.
don't know what that's gonna.
Yeah, and our buildings are really crowded. Like,
Yes,
in,
so
in my
crowded.
district, it's like we're to the max.
Yeah, there's
And-
no other room to put
Yeah.
to divide.
Exactly. So they may lead towards, and this is just me thinking in terms of all of the plans, really have to think about really reopening, having folks go into the building and so forth when there's really a vaccine.
Yeah.
Right? But then even with that, many people are
Distribution.
saying, absolutely, I'm not getting a
Right.
vaccine.
Why?
You know, how quickly did you put this together? Like 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
You know what I mean?
right.
So then you got to think about that. Okay, so we're open up. Everybody has to be vaccinated, just like with the measles, mumps,
And that won't
rubella,
happen
and-
overnight either, because that's a distribution that you have to produce it and get it out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, are we prepared? No, we're not prepared. We're just prepared for you know
be prepared.
To be prepared, exactly. The uncertainty of whatever. Just like we weren't prepared.
Yeah.
We weren't prepared when we said we have to shut it down March 13th. What do you
And
mean
we
shut
did it
shut
then.
It down, shut it down.
Yeah.
We'll do
We
it.
can do it again.
We
We
can
make
do
it
again.
work. That's our job.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We'll find a
Do
way.
the best we can, you know,
Yes, you can. That's true.
and
Trying not to stress about it now.
Can't.
because there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
I'm such a planner, so this is like killing me.
Well, that's why I'm so glad I got summer school.
Trust me.
All teachers are
There.
Yep.
True.
So now my focus is summer school, and I don't have to like stress about September
True.
right now.
you're doing
That does take my mind off that. But it's funny, I'll be like, well, in 2022, I'll have 7 students.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
like, I can't think that way.
Exactly. Changes are coming.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I'm hoping it's for the better.
Definitely
Yeah,
going to look different.
It has to be better, right?
It has to be better. That's our hope. That is our hope. And I think it's really our responsibility to make it better. Because now we've seen a different side, you know what I'm saying? So like you said, you're seeing a different dimension. And so now you have to put it into play. We know what works and we know what does not work. And so as a force, we really have to, you know, we have to speak up and do what we need
Make it
you know,
happen.
to make it happen. Exactly. So I'm not worried in terms of that.
On that note, that is a wrap.
All right.
That was a quick hour.
That was an hour?
That was an hour?
I
Believe
think
it
it
or
was
not.
long.
Oh,
How
wow.
long? What time is it?
3:25.
Oh my.
Wow.
And it happens just like that. You get
That wasn't so
nervous, all this
scary.
stuff.
Yeah, that was nice.
I
That's
told you
all
the
it's
beginning was the rough part.
That's
Oh
it.
my
The
goodness.
start, yeah. Thank you all for coming. A perspective from educators.